good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. In tonight's Undaunted, we delve into a harrowing cycle of betrayal within the ADF, Ambazonian Defense Force, that has once again led to tragic consequences. This time, the lives of their own soldier. ADF, the colonial proxy militia, operating under the guise of freedom fighters, but who indeed are pseudo-liberation fighters and have been caught short by a devastating ambush orchestrated by the elite colonial forces, the BIR. As we uncover the layers of deceit, we will shed light on the long-standing illicit relationship between the ADF and the BIR, an alliance that continues to undermine the very cause of Ambazonian liberation. It is no secret that in territories controlled by the ADF, the BIR often operates with impunity and vice versa, which goes a long way to show the collaboration between these two groups. The frequent allowance of the CPDM loyalists to traverse Amazonian territory unchallenged under territories where the ADF are supposed to be in control further raises uncomfortable questions about the true nature of these supposed resistance groups. Well, in yet another of their many entangled encounters, the ADF now finds itself betrayed and victimized by the very forces they have often collaborated with and tolerated within the borders of Ambazonia. Tonight, we explore the grim reality of how these compromises continue to cost the lives of those who believe that they are with the enemy when the enemy is indeed against them. Amid the betrayal, we must not lose sight of the larger fight. The true liberation of Ambazonia, the struggle for freedom, is one born out of resilience, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. The colonial forces and their proxies may continue their schemes, but Ambazonia's spirit remains unbroken, as we will see in the news yet again today. Despite the setbacks, the determination of the peoples of Ambazonia to reclaim their homeland and chart their destiny will not be extinguished. The path to liberation is fraught with challenges, but history has shown that no force can suppress the will of a determined people forever. Well, the fight continues and Ambazonia will rise. And it is on this note we head on to the prime headlines.
It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st. A day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Amazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution.
Fellow Ambazonians, patriotic diaspora, I salute all of you gathered around our flag on this national day, our Independence Day.
President Samuel Ikome Sako, on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation.
Today, as the Never Again generation, we have one assignment: to right this great wrong through the sword of justice, with the flame of our courage and the undying spirit of our righteous resolve. So whether we live or die, let it be for Ambazonia.
In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
Let me tell you again in a simple language. The person who does not want his neighbor to sleep should expect a knock on his door.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
To remind the world of our genocide and the injustice done to us as a nation by France and the complicit international community. Share our story with passion and courage, knowing that no one feels our pain more than we do, and no one knows our story more than those who have lived it, us. Let us fight as one man.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.
Well, these are the prime headlines for Undaunted tonight. The colonial governor Bernard Okalia Belai has expressed worry concerning the lockdown despite his countless promises of colonial military protection of the Atlantic zone. 3 soldiers under Commander Wildlife of Nkea killed by La Republic forces. These 3 soldiers are of the Pseudo Liberation Force, the ADF. And 7 years after, where is Ambazonia? Still resolute in her pursuit for independence, 7 years since the war broke out. On the national reports, we still have the Archbishop Andrew Nkea calling for dialogue. On the foreign scene, tragic coal mine explosion in Iran claimed over 50 lives in 23 countries officially applying to join the BRICS, as well as a national report where we get to see what the Mpox news continues to be. With that, we'll head on to the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. Well, the colonial governor, Bernard Okalia Belai, has expressed worries concerning the lockdown despite his countless promises of colonial military protection of the Atlantic zone and part of the Midland zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Ambazonians have shown resilience as it relates to lockdowns generally, from ghost towns specifically, from regular Monday ghost towns to other national lockdowns. Amazonians respect it as they know it is an outlet to get to the colonial authorities to respect the Ambazonian right to self-determination and struggle for reclaiming their independence. Well, this lockdown has been respected every time it has been called, and Ambazonians understand, La Republic understands that the people of Ambazonia are ready to get their freedom. It is amazing that the colonial authorities are beginning to feel, see, and even cry. It simply means Ambazonians are winning the war. The colonial governor of the Atlantic zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, Bernard Okalia Belai, is marveled with Ambazonians and their attitude towards lockdowns. The anger of the colonial administrator is from the fact that he had repeatedly stated that the security situation is under control. He expressed shock regarding the closure of most economic and social activities in the zone for the past 2 weeks. Boya, the regional headquarters, and most parts of the Atlantic zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia have seen schools grounded and economic and social activities halted for 2 weeks owing to the national lockdown that was focused on getting the global attention and the safety of Ambazonians. Well, this open manifestation of anger was during the 3rd ordinary session of the Colonial Southwest Regional Assembly that happened on Friday, September 20th, 2024. Now, despite the divergence regarding the duration of the past national lockdown and today's Monday Ghost Town, Amazonians gave the utmost observation to, regardless of the colonial administrators' usual song of normalcy and even threats. It is evidently clear with the frustration of the colonial administrator that the people of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia have a government they listen to and not the colonial regime. Well, before we head on to the next report, which talks about Ambazonia's independence, it's been 7 years and counting. Let's have Barrister Mbeseha join us in the studio. Barrister Mbeseha, you know quite a lot about this particular figure in concern. Kale Abilai, the governor, the colonial governor, he has had a thing or two to say about the Ambazonian struggle, and he has had this certain type of projection he wants to depict to both his bosses and the entire globe. Him coming out to confess his frustration. Well, what would you say in this regard? What are your thoughts about this?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity again. We must ask ourselves, who is this Bikai, well, Kala Bilai? Who is he? I don't even need his name, but I can describe him simply as this. This is Paul Biya sitting in a tree. He is the eyes and the ears of President Paul Biya in Yaoundé. President Paul Biya is not just President Paul Biya, he's the President of the Republic of Cameroon. He speaks for that Republic of Cameroon. And so when something comes out of the mouth of his personal representative in a war-torn area, telling them that they have not been telling you the truth. If anybody has any sense, take him seriously. For all the 8 years running, Kala Bilai and his other agents, DOs, sub-DOs, mayors, and he named them, have pretended that the Southwest, they call it in particular, has no problem. What to them is the Southwest? All of us know what it is geographically. It's an area called Nkea. It's an area called Meme. It's an area called Manu. It's an area called Lebielem. And of course, Fako. This is what Okala Bila has been telling the world, that in this geographical area defined above, everything is normal. The truth must always be told. Sometimes difficult to be told, but it comes out. So speaking now in 2024, September, he has just been able to tell the bare truth. I don't need to go back to Kumba to see what the mayor said there. Neither do we go to Dian or to Kope Manibu. He says it all. And that goes on to confirm what we've been saying. There is nothing normal anywhere called Ambazonia. Call it a faction of it. They call Northwest or Southwest. There's nothing normal there. And so that's just a confirmation. It goes to tell them, to remind them, tell them that all their so-called efforts have failed. Well, this very last week, we saw a certain minister, Paul Tasson, Nkwen, and Mbamenda, trying to revisit their so-called reconstruction agenda 70 years, 5 years into it. And so if the thing was moving well, why do you find these high-profile politicians, high-profile surrogates of Yaoundé, and of course, France, coming out publicly to acknowledge that things are not moving? Things are not moving. We'll continue to fight and fight. And I hear that Mr. Okala Bilai, who is the governor of the Southwest, is supposed to live in Boya. He barely lives in Boya. If you come there, his family is not there. If his own place of work is so peaceful, why would he prefer to live in Douala and drive to Boya in escorts, drive back home in escort? Why would he not bring his own wife and children so that they can go down to Moleko Market and taste the bitterness of being in a war-torn zone? They eat plantains, they eat cocoyams. Then go there and buy the plantains and cocoyams, buy the oil, the salt, and then they will come back home and know that, oh, it's not normal.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Barrister Mbeseha, speaking of Ambazonians continuing to fight, yesterday marked 7 years since Ambazonians took to the streets demanding independence from La République. The protests, which began on September 22nd and October 1st, 2017, were met with force by the colonial government, leading to the genocidal war today, a war that still rages on. The Amazonian people have been seeking to reclaim their autonomy since the 1960s, when they became part of La République after a plebiscite. However, Ambazonians feel not just marginalized, oppressed by the Francophone-dominated government. Now, let's remind our audience of a brief history of Ambazonian struggle. Yesterday, marking 7 years, is quite significant. Now, in 1954, the Southern Cameroon's state was created with its headquarters in Boya, granting the region quasi-independence. In 1961, the region joined Cameroon as part of a federal republic, but over time, the central government's power expanded, eroding Ambazonia's autonomy. Between 2016 to 2017 was when the protests and strikes organized by Anglophone lawyers, students, and teachers were violently dispersed, met with heavy-handedness from the colonial government, leading to clashes and killings of innocent protesters. And in 2017, the Amazonian leadership declared independence, which was met with military force and curfews. The conflict has resulted in widespread human rights abuses, including indiscriminate killing, which will bring here on Undaunted severally, torture, rape, and kidnappings. The international community has expressed concern, with the United States, Germany, France, and the UK calling for the United States, Germany, and the UK calling for negotiations to resolve the crisis. But all of that seems to only be just talk without any actions matching these talks. But despite the challenges, the Amazonian people remain resolute in their quest for independence. As you said, Barrister Mbeseha, they have continued to fight and they will continue to fight. There will be only one answer, and the answer is independence. The destiny of a nation should not be determined by those who condone genocide and exploitation. The Amazonian people will continue to fight for their freedom and self-determination. As Ambazonia marks 7 years of resilience, the struggle continues. International pressure mounts, and the people hopes for a peaceful, independent Ambazonia a nation. Now, Barrister Mbeseha, we have several times, countless times, called on the international community to intervene. Do you think the international community is doing enough? Do you think they're just going about the talk and not the walk to ensure that Ambazonia gets the dialogue on a fair, mediated table with La République, the belligerent party? Do you think they're doing enough about the walking, the talk they've been talking, Barrister Mbeseha?
I think the international community, as a community, they are doing enough, but they need to add more force. But let us first of all find out how we got here. How did we get here? From those pictures you see there, that was September 22nd, 2017. Seeing that crowd there, what will you call it? September 22nd is a day, in my own definition, I call it a day in history. We should call it the National Freedom Day. It is a day in history, a day in which you find these people marching there with their bare hands and branches. Who could have imagined that these people, is there any semblance of violence in that simple demonstration? Just seeing the pictures by anybody in the world, can somebody describe that as a violent demonstration? Whatever the reason behind it, no, it was a peaceful demonstration. And so I would say that is the day. And remember, 22nd September was a week away from 1st October. These dates are important. When 22nd September was 1st October was coming, a week before, the people went out with branches to ask for their rights, political and civil rights, to be respected. Simple as that. But what happened? That is the day La République du Cameroon turned millions of peaceful demonstrators into battalions of armed people. People were marching with their branches. The reaction of La République du Cameroon, by violent reaction, turned those people collectively into battalions of fighters. And the fight is ongoing. It will not stop until we get to the end. And since we were heading up to October 1st. October 1st, we never had those celebrations before. Again, nobody went out on that day to stand out even with the branches. Why? Why? Because our people will not let you even come out to celebrate a day written down in the documents in the history of the country. Call it our people de Cameroon or call it Ambazonia. They will know that people de Cameroon as we know it today without 1st October. But they will not let you celebrate it even with a branch in your hands. They will kill you. And since that day, we have celebrated 1st October in hiding. We have done everything possible and will continue to do it until sense enters the head of a madman. These are we Ambazonia, before you go to the history of 1954, 55, and all that stuff. We're peace-loving people. Between 1954, 53, and 1961, there was no military occupation. There was no military fight in Ambazonia anywhere. Why? We were the same trust territories. Why in the Cameroon under French administration was being ravaged by war. War by who? By France. Doing what? Trying to stamp out the people who just were trying to march for freedom. To see where we are a trust territory, we need independence. Their action was to kill them. And the results of the killing still linger around. Between 1954 and 1961, we had matured more than La République de Cameroon in history. We had a parliament, we had a constitution, we had elections twice, without anybody fighting another person in the street. The République had never had one. He never had any elections until after independence in 1960. And so a day in history just reminds the world and ourselves that we are a people who have lived as a people, who have behaved as a civilized people for time immemorial. And so your question is the international community taking note of all this? They are. The international community is a collection of countries. The United Nations and any other organization is a collection of countries. We know that they are taking note from what they say about this. Has the United Nations spoken about it? Of course, they've spoken about this thing more than once. The United Nations has called for negotiations without preconditions. They are prepared to do that in terms of expertise and money. The United Nations 2019, the Security Council, held an informal meeting of the Security Council on this crisis. So could they be doing all this without knowing what was going on? They know it. Another part of the international community includes the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth, they sent their representative to Yaoundé because of this. You see, Mr. Paul, they call public relations, and so on and so forth. So the international community has taken note. Have they done enough? They have not done enough. In most crises, not just this one, it takes time for them to act differently. Because it is presumed that the government of Cameroon, like any other government in the world, like any other family, they have a family head, they have a government. They're supposed to be reasonable. Just like you and me. If you have a problem with your wife, or I have a problem with your husband, or me with my wife, they expect me, my brother, my sister, my uncle will come and say, that's not how you treat a woman. They expect me to be reasonable. They will not just come to
But
my house
Barrister
and take a
Mbeseha,
woman.
in that scenario, do you think just talking is enough, or do you think practical actions should be taken?
Practical action will be taken, but what do you expect practical? What do you call practical action in terms of the international community?
Maybe to
It's not one
legalize the
man.
divorce?
Well, to legalize a divorce, I'm sorry to go there. To legalize a divorce is not even as simple as that. Even a rare divorce, it's not simple. If you have a problem now, you can call me. If you have a problem, go to call your husband. Don't expect to come out the next day a divorced woman. No. There's what they call in court. Once you're married, and you are married with children, particularly, you go to court for divorce. They will listen to your case. They listen to your husband. The next step the court will do is they will give you time. They say, okay, go and think about this thing. Okay, you want to divorce, what do you do with the children? You want to divorce, what do you do about the common house you build? They don't give you that time. Even when they pronounce that divorce, it is not final. They still give you time to see if you can work out things. Because they expect ordinary human beings to disagree. They expect human beings to reason and reconcile. In terms of marriage, maybe 2 years. That's a human marriage. In terms of nations, it will probably be more than that. It's not that they are not aware of it. And we've said it many times here. Other countries have gone through us. For example, Sudan. South Sudan, they fought for more than 30 years. Eritrea fought for more than that. So it's not that they're not taking care of it. So when we expect international action, we should not expect it to be immediate. I think these steps I've given are moving up to the final goal. When they come, I don't know. But that will depend, again, on the action of the party of Yaoundé. If we keep pushing and Yaoundé keep denying, there will come a time that they will tell you, no, stop this. Just like the last example I will give. You see what's going on? Palestine and Israel. The problem of Palestine and Israel did not start today. It started in 1948. And of 1948, when they created the state of Israel, they have been fighting before in 1967. They fought all the wars. The United Nations pretended to be quiet. Until 2024, you can count the years, just this month, that they are able to admit the state of Palestine as a full-fledged member of the United Nations. Palestine of all, with all the tentacles that you have around the world. So I'm just saying this to say that, look, it is not that it's too late.
Yes,
No. International community acts, but sometimes what you call slow action might not be slow action, because the action is supposed to be unified. That is bringing all these other countries together. It's not one person.
True.
The United States, for example, cannot come and push out Yaoundé. France cannot come and do it. They need and for them to agree that over to you.
So they're actually walking the talk, but this time in slow action, like you said. Well, we're really hoping for the best, that this slow action would indeed be a lasting solution to the ongoing war that has cost so many innocent lives. Well, speaking of lives lost in the Amazonian war, there have been what we call fifth columnists. There have been what we'll call people who have been seen by Amazonians as traitors to the struggle. Well, on September 22nd, 2024, 3 soldiers under Commander Wildlife of the colonial military proxy, the ADF, the Ambazonian Defense Forces in Nkea. According to reports, these 3 soldiers under the Commander Wildlife of the ADF were tragically killed by forces from La République du Cameroon in Ebindi, Widikum. And I know online a lot of people are not even showing any form of sympathy to these persons, which is quite understandable owing to the fact that we've seen what the ADF does to the Amazonian population, which is just to cause more suffering. But then the sad event reflects a recurrent pattern of deception, where genuine fighters are led to their demise by these colonial proxy leaders operating within the revolution, but against the revolution. These leaders mislead those who are sincere in their fight for independence, only to betray them to the enemy. The labeling of La République forces as sister forces, as seen on Nkea wall, underscores the painful truth that has become evident on the ground, that the ADF has most times been working in collaboration with La République oppressive forces. This collaboration only serves to perpetuate La République's playbook of using gullible Ambazonian fighters to achieve their ends before discarding them. Many, like the well-known Big Number, have met similar fates, deceived into joining anti-revolutionary groups, only to be abandoned by the very forces they believed they were aligned with, and in most sad cases, it cost their lives. This tragedy serves as yet another reminder of the inevitable consequences of working with the enemy, whether through ignorance or willful deception. Those who cooperate with La Republique's agenda have ultimately faced the tragic and foreseeable end that comes with betraying the genuine cause of their homeland's revolution, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Well, Bars and Mbeseha, this is the last report we're going to take from the whole front for tonight. But then it is rather very important to note how people on the home front are hardly even bothered about the debt. A lot of the comments about this report shows rather people who say they deserved it and so many other comments like that. And a lot of the times we have our military talk about understanding on the home front because these colonial proxies tend to take advantage of fighters who are eager to actually fight for the genuine cause, but then are deceived into joining causes and different other factions that are anti-revolutionary and only against the population, the civilian population of Ambazonia, instead of fighting the war for Ambazonia. This is yet another case of 3 lives lost in this senseless war.
I think it's a pity that young people have to lose their lives in that way. By my own standard, I would presume that a good number of them don't even understand what they're doing.
Actually,
Give me a second.
Versa
They probably
Mbeseha.
don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm back. They probably don't understand what they are doing. Because I've said here many times before, for you to work for other people to come around in any form or shape, you must know where you're coming from. That country called Republic of Cameroon as a country, and the regime that rules it in Yaoundé, they have no place called forgiveness. They never forgive you. They would make sure they eliminate you physically or they take you out of action forever. It is not beginning today. They have not forgiven anybody. I just give 2 glaring examples. See, I talked about the Mbeseha days in those days. They recruited the bishop from Samba. The bishop in those days was a very high position. There were very few in the country. They recruited Abendongo to work for them, to help them calm down the Mbeseha thing. Once he did it, they made sure they eliminated him. They sentenced him to life, expired him from the country, and he died in exile. These are people who I knew physically. It's not in my imagination. Fast forward to this revolution, to Ambazonia today. What has happened? What has become of Mr. Wilbur? Wilbur was a member of parliament, sitting in Yaoundé there, elected to sit in parliament. But because he took the position in the floor of assembly, that, look, there's something wrong in what you call from Cameroon. Negotiate this thing out. They lifted his immunity, issued an arrest warrant for him. He only survived when he escaped out of the country. So they don't forgive you, and they will never forgive you. So the ADF, or for who this, as a bloc, they will never forgive you. They can pretend to give you something now, but the opportune moment you will eliminate it. But why should these guys even be fighting for so-called ADF somewhere in Momo in Wudikum? Why should they even be there? If they had any common sense in their heads, you would have realized that the whole environment called Momo in general and Wudikum in particular is hostile to the existence as the group of people. Because of their own activities, they have wreaked havoc on these people. Any place where you're hiding there as ADF, you are taking a risk. You can pretend that you're safe. You are not safe. They will eliminate you either with the cooperation of your own friends or the cooperation of the community, because you are an enemy to the community where you live. We all said our fighters, they survive thanks to the community. You have shelter in the community. They show you where to pass and run away. They hide you in their houses. They give you food. Once the ADF took on the people to become their own enemies, and you know how they did it, they extorted taxes from them. They imposed all type of hardship on them. And they executed their own children publicly in the market square. Who a father, a mother will not be terribly angered with that? Who's a father or mother, a couple, a family? They will let you hide in their farm in the name of ADF, anywhere in Momo. Talk less of even moving out of Momo, carrying the name of Banner ADF. If I were there, I would look how where you're hiding. Because you're an enemy. The war they were fighting, I said it was the day they turned peaceful demonstrators into battalions of fighters. We're not fighting, at most not fighting ourselves. We're fighting the guy who attacked us, that we took the Cameroon. Not even fighting them, the civilians. They're all the civilians are everywhere in Bamenda, Kumba, we're everywhere. We didn't fight them, we fought their soldiers. And we're still fighting their soldiers and their officials. But once you are ADF or any form and turn your wrath on the people by extorting money from where you do not deserve, by taking women that you do not, they are not your wives, by killing children of your own brothers and sisters, of your own mothers, you are not safe. So we feel sorry for them. May the Lord give them peace. But if they are fought, we are proud. We are proud of our ASAs because they could hurt you by mistake. They will apologize for that. We would come out and apologize that what they did was wrong because we're humans. And so there's this chain of responsibility that we assume. And there's that assumption because we train our own people to be sure that they are doing the right thing. At the very best, not to hurt their own people. And so I don't know where this is last part of this story from the home ground, but I saw something he still put there about what the Archbishop was saying. I don't know if we're addressing it today or sometimes in the future.
We hope to bring
Over to
that
you.
tomorrow because speaking of Barrister, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm talking about Bishop Nkea. Speaking of Bishop Nkea, he seems to be doing quite a lot on the home front that we hope to bring tomorrow because according to reports, he has opened a clinic fully functional and is giving out free treatments, not free treatment, more like free consultations to the entire Bamenda population, free consultations, although they get to pay for their treatment. But then that's something, a welcome idea that a lot of Amazonians have appreciated. But then there is another report that talks about him most likely talking about the need for the need for mediation. In his words, the need for dialogue in his words. So that is something we hope to bring tomorrow to talk when we have more time here in Undaunted. But for now, Barrister Mbeseha, I will have to say good night to you, and it's always a pleasure having you here in Undaunted.
Thank you for having me once more.
All right, and good night. Coming up next is news. On the African scene, we see a devastating explosion in the Parvade 5 coal mine in South Africa, operated by Magdanjuko in Tabas, killed 51 workers and injured dozens over. Well, still on the foreign seas, we get to see that Mpox is still in the news. What has happened with the Mpox news? How far has it gone? And how many more African countries have been affected? Well, we also see the diplomatic significance overshadow security claim in Kenya's Haiti visit as well. We see that Kenya President Williams Ruto visits to Haiti aimed at boosting morale amongst Kenyan police forces deployed to curb gang violence sparked mixed reactions Ruto claimed security had improved due to Kenyan intervention. The United Nations report suggests otherwise, highlighting worsening violence. His visit symbolized Kenya's growing role in international peacekeeping, marking the first nation to deploy forces in response to Haiti's post-2021 assassination turmoil, with 400 Kenyan officers on the ground and additional support from Jamaica. The deployment underscores the challenges of addressing Haiti's escalating gang violence. While the visit holds diplomatic weight, many doubt the effectiveness of current measures. While on Sudan, Sudan's foreign minister condemns the United Nations double standard. At the United Nations Summit for the Future, Sudan's foreign minister Hussein Awad Ali criticized what he called the double standards and selectivity in enforcing the principles of the United Nations charters. The UN charters values consistently, calling for reforms in international relations and denouncing external interference in domestic conflicts, referencing Sudan's ongoing war and accusations against the United Arab Emirates for arming rebel groups. The sentiment reflects broader discontent as Ambazonia faces similar disparities in United States court ruling, particularly comparing the Kansas City 3 case, highlighting the international community's uneven treatment of different conflicts and nations. While South Sudan's peace hope deems as a transitional period is extended yet again. As South Sudan celebrated International Peace Day, conversations turned political, with disappointment over the government's decision to yet again extend the transitional period. Delaying elections, citizens like performer Evelyn Batista expressed hopes for lasting peace, while leaders such as Edmond Yakani and EU Ambassador Timo Okonen voiced frustration over slow progress. Despite financial support from international partners, South Sudan leaders, including First Vice President Dr. Riek Machar, cited unresolved issues such as unifying security forces and returning refugees as reasons for the extension. Now, United Nations representatives warned of the risks, but also emphasized the need for urgency to avoid renewed conflict. The severe snowstorm trapping thousands of South African highway. A fierce snowstorm over the weekend paralyzed the N3 highway between Johannesburg and Durban, resulting in the deaths of 2 people and leaving thousands stranded in freezing temperatures for nearly 2 days. The extreme weather conditions saw vehicles buried in snow while road authorities worked to clear the backlog. Though the entry has since reopened, officials advise caution for travelers. The snowstorm highlighted the growing risks posed by unpredictable weather patterns, raising concerns about preparedness for such extreme conditions in a country unaccustomed to harsh winter storms. Speaking of the mpox, the World Health Organization continues to monitor the spread of mpox, an infectious disease that has garnered attention but remain manageable with proper care. Mpox, though concerning, is not a new disease and has similarities to well-known illnesses such as the chickenpox in its transmission and symptoms management. The World Health Organization reports that while cases have been rising, especially in certain regions, especially Africa, the disease poses a minimal threat to the broader public when standard health protocols are followed. Vaccines and treatments are available, reducing its severity and making it no more alarming than common diseases such as malaria. Public health campaigns emphasizes the importance of awareness, but also reassure that mpox is controllable with routine medical interventions, lowering the panic often associated with this type of pandemics. Well, this type of epidemics. Well, Libya also, the boat Africa's cheapest petrol prices. On the brighter side, we see Libya maintaining the lowest petrol prices in Africa. They make this boast with octane 95 gasoline costing only 0.15 Libyan dinar per liter, equivalent of 0.032 US dollars. This contrasts sharply with the price in neighboring countries like Egypt, $0.279 Algeria $0.342, and Angola $0.351. These seem to be the smallest and the cheapest countries with fuel. According to global petrol prices, Libya's heavily subsidized fuel is as a result of its vast oil reserves, even as the country grapples with internal instability. The affordability of fuel brings some sort of relief to Libyan citizens, standing in stark contrast to the rising cost globally and in other oil nations. Well, with that, we'll just head on to the news across the globe. On the global scene, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Well, we see 23 more countries have officially and formally submitted their applications to join the BRICS alliance before the 2024 summit. The countries hail from Asia, Africa, and South America and are all emerging economies that want to use local currencies for trade instead of the US dollar. The development indicates that the bloc is lucrative to emerging economies as it provides a solution to help their local currencies grow. The BRICS alliance is at the forefront of the de-dollarization agenda, and developing countries are finding the initiative productive. Apart from 23 countries officially submitting their application to join the bloc, 24 nations have informally expressed their interest in joining the BRICS alliance. Thus, the total number of countries willing to join BRICS has grown to 47. Well, UK intelligence assesses consequences of strike on ammunition depots in Toropets, Russia is another report of concern. The strike on the Russian ammunition depot in the city of Toropets, Zvar Oblast, will affect the operations of Russian forces, particularly in Kursk Oblast. UK Defense Intelligence Review dated 21st September on X, formerly known as Twitter, as reported by Unbroken Pravda. The review notes that the strategic ammunition depot in Toropets, located about 500 kilometers, that is approximately 310 miles from Ukrainian territory, was among the largest in Russia, housing over 30,000 tons of corn ordnance. Well, still on the global reports, we have the United Kingdom intelligence believing that the depot was destroyed due to poor ammunition storage practices, leaving it vulnerable to drone strikes despite upgrades in 2018 following a number of detonation incidents. Meanwhile, the last 48 hours has been the most intense exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah in almost a year of war in Gaza, as the Lebanese militant group fired projectiles deeper into Israeli territory than has previously been seen. Now, on Saturday, Israel pounded Hezbollah targets with approximately 300 strikes in what they described as preemptive action to thwart a planned attack. Hezbollah, meanwhile, has been launching a barrage of rockets and other projectiles at Israel in what it says is retaliation for Israeli attacks in Lebanon. Well, with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.